All right, KMR Rotary. We're hanging out, taking a look at this Renesis RX8 rear plate. These plates are common, 6-port design. This would be the high horsepower manual transmission motor in the US, but this was a pretty common engine design throughout the world in the RX8. And we get a lot of questions commonly: how do we make more horsepower? How do we make them more reliable? One of the biggest reliability issues and failure points of the Renesis engine is when they get hot. They tend to shrink or fail right here, which would be around the exhaust port. The high concentration of heat in the exhaust port and the minimal amount of water cooling area is really just a recipe for easy failure if the motor gets hot, especially on the water side. So highly recommend you always keep your RX8s under 230 degrees Fahrenheit water temperatures, and that also coincides with oil. It seems like whether it's a oil temperature rise or water temperature rise, either way, we end up seeing high concentrations of heat in this exhaust area, usually leading to loss of compression or water seal failure. So keep your engines cool. One of the ways we're able to cut down on a little bit of this failure and concern is when you're rebuilding. I always recommend reflattening, resurfacing RX8 Renesis housings. It's not so much about the wear, although it's always good to have a flat surface so your new components wear in to that flat surface properly. But I think it's more of a concern to have proper water seal area. You want to make sure that your cooling jacket hasn't warped, that the housing's flat, so that way you're building a motor that will have good cooling seal areas, water seal areas, that can function and last a long time. That's part of your reliability. When it comes to performance and horsepower, porting is always an option. There's a wide variety of port designs, whether it be street port or bridge port, understanding that you need to have efficiency in design, meaning if we open up our intake heavily, we've also got to open up our exhaust. In this case, running a more open and free-flowing intake filter, maybe even porting the intake manifold, and then obviously going to a high-flowing exhaust header, opening up that exhaust will make sense. And when you start to move this much volume and air to get the most horsepower gain, the best efficiency, it's also good to do some retuning. It does work with the stock computer, but I see the best success and the best gains in any case when it comes to porting Renesis engines, when it's also accompanied with some proper tuning. I know there's always a lot of concern when it comes to resurfacing components. We've been doing a lot of lapping on the Renesis engines lately, and it seems like as long as it's only a minimal amount of material removed, you're still able to maintain some of that nitriding and some of that density and surface. You don't want to remove too much material, and that really goes for any rotary engine. It's just a matter of knowing specs, keeping things flat, and adhering to the factory recommended procedures. So, quick look into what we're doing. This particular block is getting ready to head back out. Quick little lapping, resurfacing, some fancy porting. It's going to flow better now, and it'll be happily revving and brapping along. My personal favorite on the Renesis engines is still probably the street port. It maintains a pretty solid bottom end while giving good high-end performance, but I've seen quite a few people, with aggressive intake and exhaust setups, aftermarket computers, different hot rod, race car, project car things, boosted cars, have some pretty successful setups with the more aggressive either half bridge or full bridge setups. Something to consider in the future is how we're going to get more exhaust flow. I think I've been working on some new designs there. And so hopefully on the channel in the future, we'll talk more about the Renesis engine in its stock port configuration form, meaning side intake and side exhaust. But overall, I know these motors get a lot of hate, but they're still a great rotary engine with a lot of potential. Simple rebuilds, OEM parts, keep the temps down, watch your EGTs, and have a good time. Hope that answers a couple questions about just keeping Renesis engines reliable and, simple performance upgrades. Get fresh air in, get fresh air out, and keep them cool. They'll make power and be happy.